a question, obviously with the game, and the number one topic here is Caleb Williams. We all know that. With all your quarterback experience and doing games and watching quarterbacks all shapes and sizes and years, what would be a positive night in your mind, year two, Caleb Williams going out there Monday night, where you could walk away and say, you know what, that was a good night for him? What would you how would you kind of put that into football terms?
It's a good question. It's a hard one to answer before you get into the game. I don't know that short of winning that anyone walks out feeling good, but yet I also know that there are those circumstances where you do come out of a ball game, even in defeat, and you say, wow, we showed some things and this is something we can build on. But I think, Dave, just based on what I've seen of them in the preseason, obviously a new play caller, new head coach, different system, really both sides of the ball, what that might look like. But I think for Caleb, it's really handling just the mechanics of the position and operating within the offense. I know pre-snap penalties, things of that nature have been a bit of an issue. They had a lot of penalties last year as well.
Yep.
Cleaning a lot of that up. I've talked about it on some of these shows that I've been on. On the one hand, you've got Caleb, who's played against this Minnesota defense. He had some success last year against them, and so he has that to build on. But then he'll be doing it within a framework of a different offense, one that I think should be more quarterback friendly, and should give him an opportunity to have more consistency and a higher level of success as he moves through the year. But nevertheless, it is going to be a challenging ball game for them. But how he handles all of what there's so much that goes into playing quarterback and playing it at a really high level, and a lot of it goes beyond just being able to simply throw a football. And so I think probably from my perspective, what does all of that look like, and does this look like an offense that's going to be competitive and something that we really haven't seen a lot of offensively from the Chicago Bears in quite some time.
Troy, you kick-started an education for us and our listeners last year on this show when you talked about wanting Caleb to be under center more. And we have seen him under center in training camp, and we've realized how that is so necessary to allow the run game to do what it does, and how the pass game obviously works off that. And you look at the Detroit offense the last 3 years, and everybody gets to eat. Everybody gets yards, and everything can work out when it does that. Is Caleb going to be smart enough early in the season to do what a Jared Goff has to do at a line of scrimmage for Ben Johnson in kind of deciding where to attack and kind of what play to go? Like we're excited to see him under center. We're excited to see the run game, but I don't know if he's going to be psychologically ready from the get-go to do everything he's got to do.
Well, I think from the one standpoint that there has been, and it's natural. I know when Norv Turner came to Dallas in my third year, everybody wanted our offense to look like the LA Rams and Jim Everett, and it wasn't realistic. And I don't know that the expectations are realistic as we go into this season based on, Jared Goff had been in the league 5 years. He'd been to a Super Bowl. He'd been to a couple Pro Bowls. And so his maturation and his level of understanding what defenses were doing and what was required of the position was vastly different. And he'd played at a different level, of course, than what Caleb has in just his first year. And I think there are going to be a lot of similarities. It's you don't completely overhaul the system, but you try to make it fit with the personnel that you have. Now, when I talked about last year Caleb being under center, it really probably had less to do with the run game, although there are a lot more options on what you're capable of doing within the run game when you do have a quarterback under center. But my reason for saying that last year was just to try to speed him up. And I think a lot of these quarterbacks that come out of college, there's not a real sense of urgency, and there's also not a real sense of timing in the way in which they throw the football. And we've seen the pendulum swing a little bit in the league to where we're seeing more offenses. Really, the whole Sean McVay tree, whether it's Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and then, of course, what we've seen of Ben Johnson in Detroit. You're seeing run games married more with the play action game, and that was a big part of my success as a quarterback and our Cowboys teams. And so I think by putting him under center, running some play action, it forces him to just throw more on schedule and not have to rely so much on the off-schedule plays that he's effective with. But I just don't know how you can make a living in the NFL if you don't have a sense of timing and the receivers aren't expecting the football to come out at a certain time. And we saw it last year, 68 sacks that Caleb took, and I'm a firm believer that, yes, when you get sacked a lot, usually the offensive line has a role in that. But typically, I view the sack totals as a quarterback stat more so than an offensive line. And if you're a quarterback, I've seen it from Tom Brady over the years when he didn't have an offensive line and just simply refused to take a sack. Sack in so many ways is basically you might as well punt the football. You're not going to overcome it and pick up a first down. Not a turnover, but certainly it kind of kills a drive. So there's got to be a sense for a quarterback that you're not going to take negative plays and you're not going to take sacks. And so that number has to improve dramatically. It should, one, because he's in his second year, but then also the improvements in the offensive line and the fact that Ben Johnson's going to be running a passing game that's not going to rely on Caleb Williams running around as much as he had to a year ago.
Hey, Troy, the other thing with this game that obviously that's a topic is the Brian Flores big pressure blitz defense. And, there's an old coaching thing. We used to always say, and this is kind of a two-part question for you, get your thoughts on that. Let's pressure the old bad ones and pressure the new ones, the young ones, quarterbacks, that is, and then cover versus the real good ones. That was kind of, but
Right.
but I remember, like Kansas City when Matt Nagy was here, he wanted 5 out regardless of who the quarterback was, or if it was blitz, get 5 out and get the ball off. And I can remember when Norv was with me at the Dolphins, we went down and played the Cowboys, on a Thursday night game, Thanksgiving Day. And Norv came in, and I was doing the defensive thing, and he was doing the offense, and he came in, and he says, this is going to – I said, hey, what's this Zimmer defense? Cowboys were number 1 in the NFL in blitz at that time. And he says, here's what I'm thinking. He says, I'm thinking that we're going to run one receiver routes and keep everybody in a block. I says, oh, really? I says, oh, okay, if you think it'll work, And we went out there. And Chris Chambers from Wisconsin, local kid here, was our only, and we ran a lot of routes with one receiver, and we kept the tight ends and the fullback, everybody in the block, and Jay Fiedler was our quarterback, and we beat him by 2 touchdowns, I think, that night, on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
Your thought process on pressuring the young quarterbacks, you think that's a big deal in today's football? And 2, what's been your philosophy as far as getting guys out or protecting? What would you rather have?
I would tell you, for me, Dave, I preferred getting 5 guys out. I just felt like I would know where the blitz was coming, and if we couldn't pick it up, I give me some options where I know where I can get the ball out and get it to someone who's running open. And, you start trying to pack people in there and max protect, and then they show a look, but then they don't bring it. And if you're running 1 or 2 receiver routes, those guys better be pretty good at creating some separation. I think you can get really stuck. And I, as a quarterback who wasn't as mobile as a lot of these guys, I had to depend on my ability to just beat them with the football. But I think for this game with Caleb and what Brian Flores has shown, at least in Minnesota in prior years, is a little different from what he did in Miami. In Miami, he brought a lot of the zero blitzes to where he had no safety in the middle of the field and would bring one more than you were able to protect. And how was a quarterback then going to handle that? What I've seen more, especially last year, was a lot of blitzing on early downs, first and second downs. But it seemed to me like he was doing that more for run fits and just trying to hold up against the run. And they did. They were a top 5 run defense last year. Teams just had a hard time moving the football on the ground. They varied the looks on third downs, but typically they were only rushing 4 most of the time because he wanted to protect his corners and not give up any big plays, and it was pretty effective. So I do think that as a quarterback, when you're playing against a coordinator like Flores, he brings so many different looks, and trying to sort that out and know who's coming and who's got who, and it can confuse you. And for a young quarterback like Caleb, who hasn't been exposed to a lot of those types of things, and especially now in week one playing within a new offensive system, I would imagine he'll test him especially early and see how he holds up to that. But, you know, I know there's been a lot of people talking about what Ben Johnson did in Detroit and Jared Goff against Minnesota. They were able to hit some big plays against them at times. I'm sure that's what you'd like to do, and whether or not Chicago can take advantage of some of those opportunities, because there are some big plays to be had. We'll find out on Monday night, but that'll be the challenge for the Bears.
Hey, Troy, are the Packers the best team in the division now with Micah Parsons? I mean, what the hell, man? Bears fans are not pleased.
I like the Packers. I like the division in general. I mean, last year, gosh, to go like Minnesota to go 14-3 and you don't even win the division. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. And so, but I do like the Packers. I believe that with the Lions, my question with the Lions is, of course, with losing their two coordinators, and that's important. I'm a big believer in coaching. I know how much it impacted my career and our teams. And we lost Dave after our first Super Bowl. We lost Norv after our second, and it just really wasn't ever quite the same. So you lose two guys in the same year. If anyone can hold it together, it's Dan Campbell. I got great appreciation for him, but that's going to be a challenge for the entire organization. But I do like the continuity of the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur, what they do offensively, they've got a really good young team. And Dave can relate to this, much like what Charles Haley was for us in '92 in giving us a legitimate, pass rusher who could really change and tilt the outcome. Parsons certainly does that for a defense that really came on last year and played good football. But yeah, if I was picking right now as to who I like the best in that division, I would go with the Green Bay Packers. And this was even before Micah joined them, but now especially.
Troy, thank you so much for being gracious with your time. We really do learn a lot when you come on in Chicago. It's great having your perspective on what Caleb Williams is doing. And Joe Buck's our guy, so we love hearing you two guys continue to have that strong relationship on Monday Night Football. Thank you. Have a great call and rest your voice because you've been everywhere.
Hey, Troy, thanks,
buddy. I appreciate it. I'm excited to get to Chicago. I love that town, and really looking forward to kicking off the year there this season.
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks, Troy. We'll talk, buddy.
You bet, guys.
Thank you.
That's Troy Aikman.
Yeah, man. The lots of great stuff in there, for sure, and stuff we can bring back in further context. His fears about the Lions being, relating to him losing Dave and Norv in successive years, and it was never the same after that. That was impactful to hear.